He wasn't failing, but a brutal scholarship clause meant Min-jun was on the verge of losing everything he worked for. He felt betrayed by the system, a merciless opponent that threatened to steal his future. But fate, in the form of a brilliant secret ally, had a plan of its own. It's a story of how an elaborate lie became a testament to true love and how justice, in the end, prevailed. The old university library was a sanctuary of silence, a place where the collective whispers of 1,000 dreams settled into a quiet hum. Under the soft amber glow of the lamps, students like Min-jun spent their nights forging their futures. He was a familiar figure in the cavernous reading room, a silent sentinel hunched over towering stacks of medical texts. Min-jun's ambition was as visible as the meticulously highlighted passages in his books. A scholarship student from a humble background, he carried the hopes of his family on his shoulders, a heavy, relentless burden that fueled his every late-night session. His face, usually a study in focused determination, was a mask of bone-deep exhaustion, lines of worry etched around his eyes. Lately, something had changed. The unwavering resolve that had once defined him was crumbling. A sudden, inexplicable decline in his grades, a single jarring misstep, threatened to unravel everything he had worked for. The scholarship, his one and only ticket to this world of opportunity, was on the brink of being revoked. He felt the precipice looming, the fear a cold knot in his stomach. The weight of his impending failure was so immense it seemed to absorb all the light in the room. A few tables away, in the brighter, more vibrant section of the library, sat Sola. A literature student, she was a whirlwind of energy and optimism. Popular and bright, she was surrounded by a different kind of glow, one of effortless success and carefree laughter. She had often noticed Min-jun, a quiet, serious presence in her peripheral vision. She admired his unyielding dedication, the sheer discipline that kept him glued to his studies night after night. He was a reminder of the quiet, unseen struggles that fueled so many students on campus. But tonight was different. Tonight, she watched him as he buried his face in his hands, his broad shoulders heaving with a quiet, private despair. A low, frustrated groan escaped his lips, a sound that cut through the silent sanctity of the library and pierced her heart. A pang of compassion shot through her. She understood, perhaps better than anyone, the crushing weight of academic pressure, even if their fields were worlds apart. She knew about his scholarship, a whispered piece of gossip that carried the weight of his entire story. She felt a deep-seated empathy for his plight, a profound ache to see him suffer in silence. Their worlds couldn't have been more different. He was a meticulous scientist of the human body. She was a dreamer, a lover of words and stories. But in that moment, their shared humanity bridged the gap. She wanted to reach out, to offer a word of comfort, a hand of help. But how? What could she, a stranger, possibly do? A familiar sense of helplessness watched over her as she watched him, a brilliant mind teetering on the edge, alone in the silent, amber-lit sanctuary. She knew, with a sudden and surprising clarity, that she couldn't just stand by and watch him fall. Something had to be done. The question was, what? The following night, the silent cathedral of the library held a different kind of energy. Ciola, drawn by an invisible thread of concern, found herself in a seat that offered a clear view of Min-jun's table. She watched him, half hidden behind a wall of books, his posture still tense, but with a new air of purpose. This time, however, he wasn't alone. A figure sat beside him, shrouded in the anonymity of a dark hoodie, the fabric pulled low over their head, casting a deep shadow over their face. The air around them was charged with an intensity that Ciola couldn't ignore. The mysterious tutor, a tall and slender presence, gestured with fluid, confident movements towards complex anatomical diagrams and dense pages of biochemistry. Their voice, a low and steady murmur, was barely audible, yet Min-jun listened with an almost desperate focus. Just yesterday, he had been at the end of his rope, his frustration palpable. But tonight, a transformation was taking place before her eyes. The concepts that had once seemed to defeat him were now being absorbed with a surprising, almost unbelievable speed. Seola's initial compassion morphed into a consuming intrigue. Who was this person? The tutor's movements were precise, their grasp of the material seemingly encyclopedic. Every point was made with the authority of a seasoned expert, yet their mannerisms held a certain youthful grace. The way they held their pen, the slight tilt of their head as they listened to Min-jun's questions, all of it felt strangely, tantalizingly familiar. It was like a melody she had heard before but couldn't quite place. She found herself unable to look away, her own literature homework forgotten. The tutor's face remained a mystery, always hidden in the shadows, and they never spoke directly to her, even when she walked past their table. They would always gather their things and vanish into the night just before the library's closing bell, a ghost in the hallowed halls of academia. Driven by her growing curiosity, Seola tried to approach Min-jun, feigning an interest in a mutual assignment. She asked, as casually as she could, about his sudden academic surge and the identity of his study partner. Min-jun's response was swift but evasive. "Just a senior helping me out," he murmured, his eyes darting away from hers. There was a flicker of something in his expression, a mixture of relief and a heavy, unspoken burden. He was clearly grateful for the help, yet the secrecy weighed on him. The more he tried to deflect, the more Seola felt a powerful pull to uncover the truth. The puzzle was irresistible. Min-jun's grades, once floundering, were now undeniably on the rise. But the more she thought about it, the less sense it made. Why the secrecy? If the tutor was simply a generous senior, why all the elaborate hiding? And how could they possibly know so much about Min-jun's specific academic weaknesses? The questions began to multiply, each one leading to a new theory, a new possibility. The quiet compassion she had felt for him was now replaced by a relentless need to understand the hidden truth behind his midnight study sessions. The mystery of the hooded figure became a narrative she was determined to unravel, a story that was unfolding right before her eyes in the heart of the silent library. Driven by an insatiable need for answers, Salah's curiosity transformed into a mission. She knew the library's rhythms, the slow dance of students packing up, the final bell that signaled the end of another academic day. She stayed late, long past the official closing time, hiding in the shadows of a towering bookshelf. She held her breath, the dusty smell of old paper and leather filling her lungs, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She waited. The hooded tutor and Min-jun were absorbed in their final moments of study. The low murmur of their conversation was the only sound in the vast, empty hall. As the last page was turned and the notebooks were closed, Min-jun began to pack his belongings, his movements deliberate and quiet. The mysterious tutor stood, preparing to leave, a silent figure in the soft, fading light of the lamps. Just as they turned to walk away, a sudden, powerful gust of wind blew through an open window. It was as if the library itself was holding its breath, a single dramatic exhale. The wind whipped through the aisles, and with it, the tutor's hood was pushed back, revealing their face for the first time. Salah froze, her hand flying to her mouth to stifle a gasp. The figure wasn't a man. It wasn't a senior. It was a young woman, her long, dark hair catching the light like a river of ink. As the woman turned her head, her gaze meeting Min-jun's in a private, unspoken moment, Salah's world tilted on its axis. The face was impossibly familiar. The curve of her jaw, the shape of her eyes, the gentle, knowing smile. It was a face she had looked at every day of her life. It was her own younger sister, Unji. The shock was immediate, a cold, hard jolt that ran through her entire body. Unji, her first-year literature student sister, whom Salah had always seen as sweet, a bit shy, and struggling to find her footing in a new world. The sister who she thought was just as lost in the academic labyrinth as Min-jun had appeared to be. But this Unji, standing in the library with Min-jun, was a completely different person. She exuded a quiet confidence, an effortless intelligence that Salah had never seen. The truth hit her with a visceral force, a crushing realization that shattered every assumption she had ever made.
The intimate look that passed between Eunji and Min-jun wasn't that of a tutor and a student. It was the deep, knowing connection of two people in a secret relationship. It was a glance filled with shared burdens and silent affection. It wasn't a tutoring session, it was a covert meeting. Her mind reeled, a storm of questions swirling in the aftermath of the revelation. Min-jun wasn't just being tutored, he was in a secret relationship with a hidden academic prodigy. He wasn't struggling, he was faking his despair, faking his slow progress to cover up their clandestine meetings. Why? What was so important that they had to lie to everyone, including her? What did this elaborate deception mean for her sister's future and for Min-jun's? The puzzle of the mysterious tutor had been solved, but in its place stood a much larger, more terrifying enigma: the secret life of her own sister.
The morning after the shocking discovery, the library's quiet tension gave way to the gentle clamor of a campus cafe. Seola sat across a small table from Min-jun and her sister, Eunji. The air between them was thick, heavy with unspoken accusations and the weight of the previous night's revelation. Seola's mind was a whirlwind of hurt and confusion. She had prepared herself for a confrontation, for a lie, for something malicious. She looked at Min-jun, his face pale and etched with guilt, and then at Eunji, whose usual quiet demeanor was replaced by a defiant yet vulnerable resolve. Min-jun began to speak, his voice a low, halting confession. He revealed a truth far more complex and heartbreaking than Seola could have ever imagined. He wasn't failing his classes. In fact, he was doing well. But his scholarship had an impossible stipulation. He had to maintain a perfect GPA. He had been dangerously close to slipping, a mere fraction of a point away from losing everything. The pressure had become a suffocating force, a constant reminder of the high stakes he was playing for. Then came the true gut-wrenching confession. To ease the financial burden on his family, he had taken a grueling late-night job as a security guard. His father had a serious illness, and the medical bills were relentless. He would patrol the silent campus buildings while his peers were sleeping, leaving him with no time to study, no time to rest. He was fighting a war on two fronts, and he was losing. Eunji, listening quietly, then revealed her own secret. The quiet, shy first-year literature student wasn't struggling at all. She was, in fact, a self-taught prodigy, a brilliant mind that devoured knowledge across a multitude of subjects. She had a unique ability to grasp complex concepts with startling ease. She had overheard Min-jun's desperate phone calls, his quiet despair in the library, and her heart had gone out to him. Her help wasn't just a whim, it was a deeply compassionate act. She had been studying his advanced medical curriculum in secret, sacrificing her own precious study time to tutor him, not just out of love, but to protect a future she knew he so richly deserved. As the full, unvarnished truth of their double life unfolded, a profound sense of relief washed over Seola. The crushing weight of betrayal lifted, replaced by a wave of understanding. The deception wasn't malicious or selfish. It was a desperate, beautiful act of love and sacrifice. It was an intricate dance of two souls trying to protect each other in a world that seemed determined to pull them apart. The tension that had filled the air evaporated, replaced by a quiet, deep empathy. Seola's anger dissolved, giving way to a new and powerful emotion: admiration. She looked at her sister not as a child to be protected, but as a formidable, compassionate young woman. She saw Min-jun not as a deceiver, but a man fighting an impossible battle with grace and determination. Their secret wasn't a lie. It was a testament to their unwavering commitment to each other, a testament to the lengths they would go to protect their future. In that small cafe, surrounded by the ordinary bustle of student life, Seola felt a powerful shift. She was no longer a bystander, she was a part of their story, and she knew with absolute certainty that she would help them navigate the path ahead together. The cafe confession marked a turning point. Sola was no longer an observer peering into a mystery.
She was an active participant, a trusted ally in their quiet struggle. The anger and confusion had completely dissolved, replaced by a deep sense of purpose. She had a new role, not to solve a puzzle, but to help build a bridge for two people she now understood so profoundly. With a newfound clarity, Sola brought her own unique skills to the table. As a literature student, she was an expert in structure and narrative. She used this to help them create a better, more sustainable study plan, a schedule that didn't just cram knowledge, but wove it into the fabric of their lives. She helped Min-jun optimize his limited study hours and helped Eunji manage her own dual academic workload, ensuring her genius wouldn't be a burden but a source of power. She found resources for advanced placement, tutors for subjects outside her own expertise, and online courses that could accelerate Eunji's learning without sacrificing her own future for Min-jun's. It was a collaborative effort, a narrative of three people working in unison. The burden of secrecy had been the heaviest weight of all. Once it was lifted, Min-jun found the confidence to do something he had been too afraid to do before. He spoke to his professors. He explained his situation, the late-night job, the family illness, and the immense pressure he was under. He was prepared for skepticism, for a cold, clinical response. Instead, he was met with understanding and empathy. His professors, seeing his dedication and his honest struggle, were more supportive than he could have ever imagined. They offered extensions and guidance, not as a handout, but as an acknowledgement of his unique circumstances. With the fear of being exposed gone and the support of his new team, Min-jun's focus returned with a ferocity he hadn't felt in months. The pressure wasn't gone, but it was now shared, and that made all the difference. His grades, once teetering on the edge, began to climb, and then they soared. He was no longer just surviving, he was thriving. Sola watched it all unfold with a profound sense of admiration. She saw the quiet strength of her sister, who had always been a silent force of nature. She saw Min-jun, a man who had faced adversity with a quiet dignity, now allowing himself to accept help and stand tall. Their love, once a secret confined to the pages of a textbook, was now a powerful, public force. It wasn't a weakness that required deception, but a strength that drove them both to be better. They were no longer two people burdened by a lie, but a team united by trust, shared purpose, and an unbreakable vision for their future. In that moment, Sola realized that true love wasn't just about romance. It was about sacrifice, support, and the quiet, unwavering commitment to help each other become the best versions of themselves. The final scene was a celebration, a moment of triumph that had been earned through midnight struggles and quiet sacrifices. The years had passed, and the silent library where their story began was now a distant, cherished memory. On a sun-drenched campus lawn, Min-jun stood tall in his graduation robes, his face beaming with a pride that reached his eyes. The weight on his shoulders was no longer a burden of fear, but the well-deserved heaviness of an academic hood. He graduated with honors, his scholarship not only secured, but serving as a testament to his unwavering resilience. His future as a doctor, once a fragile dream, was now a bright, tangible reality. Beside him, in the crowd of cheering families and friends, was Eunji. The shy, quiet girl from the library was gone, replaced by a woman of radiant confidence. Inspired by her own success in secretly mastering a curriculum far beyond her years, she had finally found the courage to embrace her true passions. She was no longer just a literature major. She was a double major, a brilliant mind weaving together the art of storytelling with the meticulous science of medicine. Her love for words and her innate talent for healing had found a harmonious home, a passion she had long kept hidden in the shadows of her quiet genius. Their love story was a testament to the fact that the most profound connections are often forged not in grand gestures, but in quiet, everyday moments. It began with Siala's simple act of compassion in the library, a small seed of empathy that blossomed into a powerful, unbreakable bond. The confession that had once been a source of tension and fear had, in fact, been their salvation. It had not only saved their romance from the strain of secrecy, but it had also strengthened the bond between all three of them, a shared secret that became a shared strength. Their love story was no longer a secret confined to the hushed corners of a library. It was now an open book, a living testament to the fact that true love isn't about finding a perfect person, but about finding a partner you can face challenges with. It was about trusting each other enough to be vulnerable, to reveal your greatest fears and your quietest strengths. It was a story about how, in the face of immense pressure, they had found the strength not just to survive, but to thrive, to be their truest, most authentic selves together. And in doing so, they had inspired a quiet admiration from all who knew them, a silent nod to the power of a love that was built on trust, sacrifice, and the belief that a shared future was always worth fighting for.